Have you ever noticed how a single difficult person can disturb an entire day? How one careless word, one cold look, or one unreasonable demand can echo in your mind long after the moment has passed. You replay the conversation again and again. You imagine better responses. You feel the quiet heat of frustration rising in your chest. And the most unsettling part is this. They may have already forgotten the interaction, yet you are still carrying its weight. In Stoic philosophy, this is not a problem of other people. It is a problem of where we place our attention. Marcus Aurelius once wrote that every morning we should expect to meet people who are meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. Not because the world is cruel, but because human nature is flawed. The Stoic does not ask, "Why are people like this?" The Stoic asks, "Why do I allow their behavior to disturb my inner peace?" Difficult people are not obstacles placed in our path. They are mirrors. They reveal how attached we are to approval, how dependent we are on control, how easily our calm can be taken away. Most people believe calmness comes from changing others, from correcting them, avoiding them, or defeating them in argument. Stoicism teaches something far more unsettling and far more powerful. Peace is not found outside of you. It is preserved within you. When someone insults you, interrupts you, or acts unfairly, they are not harming you directly. What harms you is the judgment you attach to their actions. This is where the Stoic mindset begins. Not with resistance, but with awareness. Awareness that you do not control their words. You do not control their emotions. You do not control their character. But you always control one thing, your response. And in that small space between stimulus and reaction, your freedom lives. Imagine a quiet river flowing through a forest. Stones fall into it. Branches break the surface, yet the water continues onward without resistance. The Stoic aims to become that river, not cold, not indifferent, but steady. When a difficult person speaks harshly, the untrained mind reacts instantly. It tightens, it defends, it seeks to strike back. The Stoic pauses. In that pause, something remarkable happens. You remember that their anger is not yours. Their impatience is not yours. Their ignorance is not yours. Epictetus reminded us that people act according to what seems right to them. Even when they are wrong, they believe they are justified. Understanding this does not excuse bad behavior. It dissolves resentment. Because resentment assumes intent, and intent assumes control. The Stoic releases both. You begin to see difficult people not as enemies, but as teachers placed in your life without your consent. They teach patience when you want speed, humility when you want dominance, self-mastery when you want revenge. This shift is subtle, almost invisible, yet it changes everything. Instead of asking, "How do I stop them?" you ask, "How do I remain unbothered?" Instead of tightening your chest, you loosen your grip. Calm becomes a practice, not a personality trait. And slowly, quietly, you realize something profound. The difficult person has lost their power, not because they changed, but because you did. They still speak. They still provoke. They still behave as they always have. But now their words fall like rain on stone, noticed yet harmless. This is the foundation of the Stoic mindset. A calm that does not depend on silence, a peace that survives friction. And this calm, once cultivated, cannot be taken away. At some point, you begin to notice a quiet pattern. The people who disturb you most are rarely the loudest, or the cruelest, or even the most powerful. They are the ones who touch something unresolved inside you. A dismissive tone reminds you of past disrespect. An arrogant remark awakens an old insecurity. A stubborn refusal mirrors a fear of being ignored. Stoicism asks you to observe this without judgment, not to condemn yourself, not to excuse the other person, but to understand the mechanism at work. Every emotional reaction follows a simple sequence. An external event occurs. Your mind assigns meaning to it. Your body responds. The difficult person provides only the first step. Everything else is created within you. This realization is not meant to blame. It is meant to liberate. Because if your suffering is created by interpretation, then peace can also be created by interpretation. The Stoic does not suppress emotion. Suppression breeds tension and eventual collapse. Instead, the Stoic examines emotion calmly, as one would examine a passing cloud. Ask yourself, what exactly am I afraid of losing in this moment? Respect, control, comfort, a sense of superiority. Difficult people threaten imagined possessions, not real ones. They cannot take your character. They cannot take your values. They cannot take your inner discipline. Yet when you forget this, you react as if something precious were under attack. This is why Stoic calm feels unnatural at first. Your nervous system has been trained to respond quickly, to defend immediately, to prove worth without delay. But calm is not weakness. It is delayed strength. In the pause before reaction, you reclaim authorship of yourself. You remember that anger promises clarity but delivers confusion, that outrage feels powerful but leaves you depleted, that winning an argument often costs more than it gives. The Stoic chooses a quieter victory, self-command, and this choice, repeated daily, changes how others perceive you, not because you dominate them, but because you no longer need to. As your practice deepens, something subtle shifts in your relationships, not all at once, not dramatically, but undeniably. You begin to respond instead of react. You listen without absorbing poison. You speak without needing to wound. Difficult people sense this shift, sometimes unconsciously. Some will soften. Conflict requires two participants willing to escalate. Others will persist. Confusion often follows when provocation fails. Stoicism prepares you for both outcomes. You are not practicing calm to change others. You are practicing calm to remain aligned with yourself. This distinction matters, because when calm depends on others behaving better, it is fragile. When calm depends on your own discipline, it becomes durable. You learn to set boundaries without hostility, to disengage without contempt, to remain present without surrendering peace. Stoicism does not demand passivity. It demands precision. You choose when to speak, when to remain silent, when to walk away. And you do so without resentment. The difficult person no longer defines the emotional climate. You do. There will still be moments of irritation. Stoicism does not promise perfection, but irritation becomes information, not a command. It tells you where attachment still exists, where expectation still lingers, where practice is needed. In this way, difficult people become unlikely allies. They reveal the edges of your discipline. Each encounter refines you. Calm becomes less of an effort, more of a state. You stop rehearsing conversations that never happened. You stop carrying arguments into the future. You stop allowing strangers to rent space in your mind. Life grows quieter not because noise disappears, but because it no longer controls you. This is the Stoic freedom, not escape from difficulty, but mastery within it. And once tasted, this freedom changes how you move through the world. You speak slower, you listen deeper, you react less. Others may call it detachment. You know it as clarity. The difficult person remains as they are, but you remain as you choose. And in that choice, calm becomes your nature, unbothered, unshaken, whole. As the Stoic path continues, you begin to understand something deeper. Calm is not merely a reaction to difficult people. It is a way of relating to the entire world. At this stage, you stop seeing challenges as interruptions. You see them as part of the design. Difficult people no longer arrive as surprises. They arrive as expected tests of character. Seneca once warned that a person who has never been tested does not truly know their strength. Comfort hides weakness. Friction reveals structure. When someone provokes you now, the old impulse still appears, but it no longer dominates. You notice the tightening in the chest, the quickening of breath, the urge to explain, defend, or correct. And instead of obeying, you observe. This observation creates distance. Distance creates choice. You begin to understand that many conflicts are fueled by urgency, the belief that something must be resolved immediately. The Stoic rejects this illusion. Very few things require instant emotional response. Most situations dissolve when given time. Silence, when chosen consciously, becomes a powerful tool. Not passive silence, intentional silence. You allow the other person to speak, to exhaust their emotion, to reveal their motivation. Often you discover that their words are not about you at all. They are expressions of their own confusion. This realization softens judgment. You stop taking behavior personally, not because you lower your standards, but because you understand perspective. Stoicism does not deny injustice. It denies obsession. You address what is necessary. You ignore what is noise. This discernment is learned slowly, through repeated encounters, through mistakes, through reflection. And with each encounter, your inner posture strengthens. You become less reactive, not because you are detached from life, but because you are more aligned with it. Calm becomes less about endurance and more about clarity. Eventually, something remarkable occurs. The difficult person begins to play a smaller role in your inner life. Not because they disappear, but because they are no longer central. Your attention shifts inward, toward values rather than reactions, toward intention rather than outcome. You begin to measure success differently. Success is no longer winning arguments. It is maintaining integrity. Success is no longer being understood. It is being consistent. This shift changes how you speak. Your words become fewer but more precise. You stop explaining yourself to those who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop proving yourself to those who profit from your doubt. The Stoic understands a simple truth. Energy is finite. Where you place it shapes who you become. By withdrawing energy from endless conflict, you invest it in discipline, in growth, in purpose. This does not make you invisible. It makes you grounded. Others may still attempt to provoke. Habits persist longer than awareness, But provocation now meets stillness, and stillness unsettles chaos. Some people will misinterpret your calm as indifference. Others will mistake it for arrogance. The Stoic accepts both misunderstandings without resistance. You are no longer managing appearances. You are managing yourself. Over time, calm transforms into authority. Not authority over others, but authority over your inner world. This authority is quiet. It does not announce itself. It shows in posture, in pace, in presence. People sense it instinctively. They may not know why conversations feel different around you, only that escalation seems unnecessary. This is the indirect influence of Stoic practice. You do not demand respect. You invite it through consistency. Difficult people remain part of life. Stoicism never promised their removal. What it offers instead is sovereignty. You are no longer governed by moods imposed from outside. You are governed by principles chosen within. And this governance brings a profound relief. Life feels lighter, not because it is easier, but because you are no longer carrying what was never yours. You move forward with steadiness, meeting difficulty without hostility, meeting noise without confusion. This is not emotional numbness. It is emotional intelligence refined through discipline. And once established, this state does not require constant effort. It becomes your default. Calm, then, is no longer a strategy. It is a way of being. At this stage of the Stoic journey, calm is no longer something you reach for in moments of tension. It is something you carry quietly into every encounter. You begin to notice that the world has not changed. People are still impatient. Voices are still loud. Demands still arrive without warning. What has changed is your relationship to these forces. You no longer brace yourself against life. You meet it with preparedness. This is what the Stoics meant by inner order. A mind arranged before chaos appears. Difficult people often operate from urgency. They rush toward reaction because stillness feels threatening to them. Silence exposes what distraction hides. The Stoic understands this, and therefore does not compete in urgency. When confronted now, you do not rush to be understood. You do not rush to correct. You do not rush to defend. You allow space. Space between words, space between action, space between impulse and choice. In that space, power accumulates. Not the power of control over others, but the power of alignment within yourself. You become selective with engagement. Not every comment deserves a response. Not every conflict deserves your energy. This selectivity is not avoidance. It is discernment. Stoicism teaches that attention is the most valuable currency you possess. Where you spend it determines the shape of your inner life. By now, you recognize a simple truth. Many conflicts persist only because they are fed. Starve them of emotional fuel, and they lose momentum. This does not mean silence in the face of injustice. It means clarity in choosing battles. You act when action aligns with values. You withdraw when reaction serves only ego. The difficult person may attempt escalation, volume increases, gestures sharpen, pressure intensifies. Yet you remain grounded. Your breathing slows. Your posture remains open. Your tone stays measured. This steadiness unsettles those accustomed to resistance. They expect friction. They receive calm. And calm reflects their agitation back to them without judgment. This is not manipulation. It is presence. You are no longer attempting to manage outcomes. You are managing conduct. In doing so, you protect something essential, your inner coherence. With time, this coherence becomes visible, not as superiority, but as reliability. People sense when someone cannot be easily moved, not rigid, but rooted. Your reactions become predictable in the best sense, measured, thoughtful, consistent. This consistency builds trust, even among those who disagree with you. Difficult people may still challenge you, but their influence diminishes. They no longer define the emotional tempo of the room. You do. Stoicism does not promise admiration, it promises independence. You stop seeking validation from unstable sources. You stop outsourcing self-worth to volatile opinions. Instead, you anchor yourself to principle. Principle outlasts mood. Principle outlasts conflict. Principle outlasts misunderstanding. This anchoring brings a quiet confidence, not loud, not performative, but unmistakable. You begin to notice that some people drift away. Chaos cannot attach to stillness indefinitely. Others adjust. They lower their volume. They slow their pace. Not because you demand it, but because your presence invites it. Even when this does not happen, you remain unchanged. The Stoic does not require harmony to remain whole. You understand now that peace is not the absence of disturbance. It is the ability to remain undisturbed. This understanding reshapes how you move through life. Meetings feel lighter. Conversations feel shorter. Conflicts feel smaller. Not because you avoid reality, but because you no longer magnify it. You have learned to carry difficulty without absorbing it, to witness emotion without inheriting it. This is emotional maturity refined by discipline. At this stage, calm no longer feels like effort. It feels like default. You notice it in small moments, a delayed response, a softened tone, a quiet exit from unnecessary tension. These moments accumulate. They form a life that is less reactive, less crowded, less noisy inside. Stoicism does not remove pain. It prevents suffering from multiplying. You still feel disappointment. You still feel frustration. But these states pass through you, not into you. The difficult person remains who they are, but you are no longer shaped by their instability. This is not detachment from humanity. It is commitment to self-governance. You have learned the central Stoic lesson that freedom is not granted by circumstance, but claimed through discipline. And once claimed, it does not need to be defended loudly. It stands quietly, firm, unmoved. Calm, then, becomes your signature. Not because you suppress life, but because you understand it. And understanding, when practiced daily, becomes peace. By now, calm has stopped being a reaction. It has become a position you stand from. You no longer enter conversations hoping for peace. You arrive already carrying it. This changes how power moves around you. Difficult people often rely on instability. They push, provoke, interrupt, not to communicate, but to control the emotional rhythm. The Stoic does not wrestle for rhythm. He sets it. When tension enters the room, you do not rush to neutralize it. You let it reveal itself. You listen without urgency. You observe without judgment. You respond without heat. This restraint is not accidental, it is trained. You have learned that most conflict feeds on immediacy. Remove immediacy, and conflict weakens. A raised voice loses momentum when met with stillness. A sharp remark dulls when unanswered. A provocation collapses when it finds no target. This is not avoidance, it is mastery of timing. Stoicism teaches that strength is not loud, it is consistent. You no longer feel compelled to correct every misunderstanding. Truth does not require constant defense. You speak when clarity serves purpose. You remain silent when noise seeks reaction. This discipline preserves something rare: mental bandwidth. You are no longer exhausted by other people's emotions. You no longer carry their storms home with you. Instead, you return to yourself intact. At this stage, you notice a quiet shift. Your presence alone begins to regulate the environment, not through intimidation, through steadiness. People slow down around you. They think before speaking. They recalibrate without realizing why. Those who thrive on chaos feel uncomfortable. Calm exposes patterns they prefer to avoid. You allow this discomfort without intervention. The Stoic understands that not everyone will like the version of you that cannot be provoked. Approval is no longer currency. Integrity is. You measure success differently now, not by harmony achieved, but by alignment maintained. You walk away from situations without replaying them. You release conversations once they end. You sleep without rehearsing defense. This is freedom earned, not granted. As this freedom stabilizes, you begin to sense something deeper. Calm has become authority. Not authority over others, but authority over your inner state. This authority is subtle. It does not announce itself. It does not demand recognition. It shows in posture, in pacing, in the way you pause before speaking. Difficult people still exist. Stoicism never promised their disappearance. What has disappeared is their access to you. They may attempt old tactics, sarcasm, pressure, emotional leverage, but these tools no longer function. You have learned to recognize manipulation without resentment, to see insecurity without absorbing it, to disengage without contempt. This is the mark of maturity. You no longer confuse emotional intensity with truth or volume with importance. You understand that most people act from habit, not intention. This understanding softens reaction without softening boundaries. You still say no. You still draw lines, but you do so calmly. The Stoic does not escalate to be heard. He speaks from center. Over time, this composure compounds. You trust yourself more, not because life is predictable, but because your response is. This trust becomes internal security. When chaos appears, you do not ask, "How do I stop this?" You ask, "How do I move through this well?" This shift changes everything. You stop resisting difficulty. Resistance creates friction. You stop absorbing difficulty. Absorption creates fatigue. Instead, you pass through, like wind through stone corridors, felt but not retained. You begin to realize that calm is not passive, it is active regulation. It is the continuous choice to remain sovereign. Moment by moment, others may never articulate what they sense around you, but they feel it. Your presence signals safety without submission, strength without aggression. This is Stoic leadership in its quietest form. You no longer seek to win interactions. You seek to leave them intact. Intact in character, intact in energy, intact in clarity. And when you leave, nothing follows you home. No echoing voices, no delayed arguments, no emotional residue, only stillness. This is the final transformation, when calm is no longer something you practice, but something you inhabit. Difficult people remain part of the world, but they are no longer part of your inner weather. You have learned the deepest Stoic lesson. That peace is not fragile when it is grounded in discipline. It does not shatter under pressure. It sharpens. And from this place, you move forward steadily, unprovoked, unburdened, unshaken. At the end of this journey, something becomes unmistakably clear. Stoicism was never about avoiding difficult people. It was about no longer becoming one yourself. You now understand that calm is not fragile. It does not require protection from the world. It requires discipline within it. The noise around you continues. Opinions collide. Tempers rise. Demands persist. Yet none of this feels urgent anymore. You have learned to slow the moment before it takes you, to notice the first spark of reaction, to choose restraint over reflex. This choice, repeated quietly, has reshaped your inner world. You no longer measure your worth by how others treat you. You measure it by how faithfully you respond. The Stoic does not ask for a calmer world. He becomes calm regardless of the world. This is not emotional withdrawal. It is emotional ownership. You still care. You still engage. You still speak when it matters. But you no longer bleed internally for situations that do not deserve your energy. Difficult people once felt like threats. Now they feel like information. They show you where patience is needed, where ego once lived, where discipline has grown. You do not resent them for this. Resentment implies dependence. Instead, you thank them silently and move on unchanged. Calm has become something you carry into rooms, into conversations, into conflict. Others may not understand it. They may test it. They may try to disrupt it. But you are no longer invested in their approval. You have learned that the deepest form of confidence is quiet. It does not rush. It does not explain. It does not demand agreement. It simply stands. And standing this way, you feel lighter. You are no longer dragged into unnecessary battles. You are no longer rehearsing arguments that never happen. You are no longer surrendering peace for the illusion of control. This is not the absence of emotion. It is mastery of it. This is the Stoic mindset fulfilled. A mind that remains steady even when the world is not. As you move forward from here, remember this. Stoicism is not a destination. It is a practice. There will be days when calm comes easily and days when it must be reclaimed deliberately. Do not judge yourself for the struggle. Struggle is the training ground. Each difficult interaction is another chance to pause, to choose, to respond with intention. You will not always be perfect. Stoicism never demanded perfection. It asks only for awareness and the willingness to return to center. When frustration arises, observe it. Do not obey it. When provocation appears, recognize it. Do not mirror it. When silence feels uncomfortable, stay with it. It often holds clarity. Over time, this practice reshapes your identity. You become someone others feel safe around, not because you agree with them, but because you are not controlled by reaction. Your presence becomes steady. Your words carry weight. Your absence leaves no residue. This is influence without force, strength without aggression, authority without noise. And this is why the Stoic mindset endures. It does not depend on circumstances, only on commitment. You are no longer waiting for people to change. You have already changed your relationship to them. From this place, life feels less crowded, less demanding, less heavy. not because it is easier, but because you are no longer carrying what was never yours. If this message resonated with you, if you felt yourself reflected in these words, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, where can I practice this calm today? And if you found value here, support this space. Like this video. Share it with someone who needs steadiness. Leave a comment and tell us what calm means to you. Your engagement helps this message reach others who are searching for the same quiet strength. Stay grounded, stay unbothered, and continue walking the Stoic path.